This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below. We're going to discuss a lawyer who has committed the things, and it is no longer alleged. He admits it in his own words, and we're going to listen to it. So join me as we listen to Christopher Hook defend himself against Judge Otis Wright's accusations and anger, right? Righteous anger, rightly so, at his hearing. We have obtained, thanks to Keith Lee, I think it is, from Associates Mind, or at Associates Mind, I forget which organization is Keith with. I want to give credit to it because this was amazing that he got a hold of this. But we have obtained the hearing audio from the 17-minute and 24-second hearing that Judge Otis Wright held on an order to show cause why Christopher G. Hook should not be sanctioned, why he should not be forced to pay the opposing side's attorney's fees, why his client's $200,000 or so case should not be completely dismissed for his misconduct in the way he talked to or the way he addressed opposing counsel. Now, we had a video on this, and I am not going to repeat the profane and inappropriate language that he used. The judge does not repeat it either, but the judge also warns you that they're talking about this guy who has used this language. This is amazing, and you need to hear this. So without further ado, well, actually a little bit further ado on this end, because do we want to make a visual for this? This is just audio. Should we make a little bit of a visual? I have Photoshop here. Let's just grab Photoshop real quick. Yes. Yes. That
beautiful.
Works so well.
Something that I've learned over the past couple of weeks, or even months, with the atrocious lawyers that we've been covering, is if you have a strategy named after you, it's almost never a good thing, right? In the legal industry. Like, the Hook defense, the Leibowitz defense. You know what I mean? I don't know if I've ever heard of a strategy that's named after somebody that was a good thing. Have you?
No, the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one.
That was a negative one.
Yeah.
All right, so on the left of, well, my right, your left, is, of course, Mr. Hook, and the gentleman wearing the Marine Corps hat is Judge Otis Wright. And we will break in and interrupt this audio as we go, so, but you're going to enjoy it. I will also try my best to keep the volume consistent because it varies all over the place. Welcome to Courtroom Audio.
All right, we come to order. The United States District Court is once again in session. The Honorable Otis B. Wright, the second judge presiding. You may be seated. Calling item 2, CV 19-8024, Alan Baker et al. Versus Allstate Insurance Company et al. Counsel, may I have your appearances, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Matthew O'Hanlon of Barnes & Thornburg, LLP. I'm newly retained counsel on behalf of plaintiffs Alan Baker and Linda B. Oliver.
I saw the request for substitution of attorney, which I have not yet approved.
And that is Judge Wright's voice.
Correct, Your Honor.
But welcome.
Thank you.
And where is Mr. Christopher G. Hook?
That is a good question, Your Honor. My understanding was that he was supposed to be here today, pursuant to the court's order.
I did extend an invitation to him.
So the fact that he is not here is unexplained to us and troubling.
So I'm going to reveal something here. Mr. Hook is actually in the courtroom and has not identified himself.
Oh, I'm not troubled at all.
But the judge is not troubled at all by that.
All right, let's continue with Shepard Muller.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Peter Klee on behalf of Allstate Insurance Company.
And you might remember that Peter Klee was one of the victims of Mr. Hook's attacks. Now remember, Mr. Hook didn't just throw inappropriate insults. They were of the worst kind of insults, and then they became threatening. They identified opposing counsel's spouse and place of residence and said that he was going to come after them or something. Go watch the thing for yourself. I'm not trying to put further words into Mr. Hook's mouth, but he did make actual, maybe not imminent threats. Maybe he wasn't actually meaning to follow up on the threats, but he made the threats in the first place, is why we're here.
Counsel, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Mark Feldman, also on behalf of Allstate Insurance Company.
Good afternoon, sir.
Notice that neither Feldman or Klee sound very happy to be here, even though this is something that is vindicating them and against the person who did this to them. They're still not feeling very good about it. It's not something that anyone feels very good about. We, of course, we're doing the the sideline quarterbacking, the schadenfreude and all that. And I do want to give this some reverence. This is extremely inappropriate what Hook did. And it's never a laughing matter. And if I was to go to a courtroom or I was a party involved, none of this is a laughing matter. We're finding the humor in it because it's that bad. It's so bad. You can only laugh about it from the sidelines. Also, you should know this hearing and this behavior has made headlines across every lawyer news site I have seen. No one in the lawyer world has not heard of this case and heard about Mr. Hook and how inappropriate all this was. Every lawyer in the country, at least in the US, and probably many abroad, are aware of what is going on here and think this is wildly inappropriate, what Mr. Hook did. And so we're all watching with the hopes that Judge Wright will somehow correct and cure this defect that Mr. Hook has brought to our profession.
You with Allstate?
Yes, sir.
Well, go ahead. Join the party. Go ahead. Who are you?
Robert Romero with Allstate Insurance Company.
All right.
Join the party.
Everybody knows why we're here. Unfortunately, the entire country knows why we're here. This is why I'm really sorry that Mr. Hook is not here, having brought this much shame on the profession.
Having brought this much shame on the profession. This is a federal judge, a retired Marine Corps veteran, and retired police officer. No, if Christopher Hook was a retired Marine Corps veteran, he would know better.
Of all the stupid things I anticipated today, this is not one of them. All right, tell you what we're going to do.
So of all the stupid things he anticipated, having Christopher Hook not show up was a real thorn in the judge's side. And it's going to go on for a few more minutes before Christopher Hook has the courage to speak up.
We're going to get something done. In terms of the relief, some of the relief that has been requested, some of that is mooted. But I do need I need something from you, counsel, or if you feel uncomfortable answering these questions, I'll just ask your clients directly. I want to know what they knew.
So the judge has asked what the clients knew about Christopher Hook's filings. In other words, some clients actually do want their attorney to talk to people like this. If you are a family law attorney, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When people get divorced, they are very angry at their ex sometimes, and they want to hire the attorney that is going to be a bastard towards their ex. And I've been the attorney who's not been aggressive enough for their client because they want things that I'm not willing to do. Meanwhile, I'm sitting across from an opposing counsel who's doing all the things that I think are completely inappropriate to be doing in a family law courtroom or court setting. But they're doing them, and the judge isn't necessarily shutting them down, and the client really, really wants you to be really aggressive and angry and call people names and things like that. And that's not how I conduct business, so I got out of family law.
Did they know about the opposition that was filed to the ex parte? What did they know? How much of this did they condone? Because, I'm not going to hide the ball here, this case was going to be history. But at least looking at his reply, he makes the representation that they were completely clueless of his conduct, and that once they heard about it from others who had seen it in the media, they took steps to go and retain you. Is that true?
That is true, Your Honor. I'm happy to answer your questions directly, or if you would prefer to ask my clients directly, they can respond as well.
This is one of the most professional lawyers I've ever heard. I forget, he did introduce himself earlier. I'm sorry that I already forgot their name. They're from the new law firm that that Linda Baker and Oliver, and I forget Mr. Oliver's name, had hired, and they are doing a spectacular job.
Well, if my summary is accurate, that they knew nothing about this in his conduct, I see them nodding their heads.
Probably furiously nodding their heads. Yes, Your Honor, we knew nothing about this. Yes, Your Honor, we knew nothing about this.
And fine. Then dismissal of the case is off the table.
Yay!
I was terribly concerned about these depositions. I can imagine how those depositions would have proceeded. Oh, I am so pissed.
Oh, I am so pissed, he says.
With you in the case now, sir, I guess we can lift the stay on those depositions.
So the plaintiff's case is not going to be shut down or otherwise adversely affected beyond these hearings.
The request to disqualify Mr. Hook, I believe, has been mooted.
So what he means by moot is that Mr. Hook has been removed from the case by the other attorneys being hired and entering their appearance as counsel, and Mr. Hook resigning himself from the case. So he doesn't have to be fired. He doesn't have to be forcibly removed in the judge by a judge's order. So that's moot.
The permanent injunction is likewise mooted. And again, we can remove the protective order and permit the depositions to proceed. Now, what remains, of course, is the monetary sanctions and the award of attorney's fees for all of this.
Now, that's not quite enough for plaintiffs, or rather defendants, all states' attorneys. You'll hear about that in a second.
I'd like to have something from Shepard Mullen in writing.
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to raise one issue that you mentioned. You said the protective order is mooted, but the protective order for the depositions is mooted, but we requested a restraining order, which to keep Mr. Hook away from counsel and their families based on the threats, and we would ask that you consider that along with the other relief that we've requested.
Do you think that's still a possibility?
20, 30 years ago, I would not have.
When he says, do you think it's still a possibility, he means that Mr. Hook would actually carry out any action.
But today, when I see in the newspaper time and time again people that you wouldn't think would do something crazy, bring a firearm and start shooting, and I don't know, Mr. Hook clearly seems imbalanced. And
Mr. Hook clearly does seem imbalanced now, doesn't he?
I think that everybody would feel safer if he were kept away from Allstate and Allstate's counsel and their families.
I agree with you. Practicing law for 25 years, I've never seen anything like this, so I understand what you're saying. And we don't want to have a situation where people are saying, and he was so quiet. All right.
Wow. So they think he's nuts enough to actually hurt somebody.
You all prepare it, I'll sign it.
Oh, wait. So he's going to sign whatever they prepare in regards to a restraining order.
I guess I'll have to issue another order to show cause to Mr. Hook, extending him another invitation.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I am here.
Oh, really?
I apologize. I'm here, Your Honor.
Mr. Hook stands up. Will the real Mr. Hook please stand up?
When did you get here?
I arrived here just before 1:30, and I've been...
hiding somewhere?
He was there the whole time. He was there the whole time.
No, Your Honor. Not at all.
Did you make a fashionable entrance?
Not at all, Your Honor.
You didn't think 1:30 meant 1:30?
I apologize, Your Honor.
Could I please go hide under my desk now? Judge Wright is getting angry. I'm going to go hide under my desk.
You know why we're here. I'm just curious about a number of things. In reading your reply to the ex parte application, which I'm going to get into, you indicate that you've apologized to the court and to defense counsel. I don't care about them, but where did you apologize to the court? I'm still looking. You didn't.
I thought that was in my opposition, Your Honor. If it was...
No, it was not.
I'm deeply sorry to the court, Your Honor.
Because I was seriously looking for that.
He did just say, I'm deeply sorry to the court, so great. Whew, I'm going to keep ducking every time Judge Wright speaks.
I have criminal defendants in here all the time apologizing to the court. Why? I have no idea. But this, I have never seen anything like this, and certainly not in writing.
When the judge starts pounding on the table with his fists, you are in trouble.
Do you realize that there's people across the country? I had a friend of mine from Chicago, one of the big firms back there, calling me about this, wanting to know what is wrong with you Los Angeles lawyers. You have single-handedly brought that kind of discredit to the profession.
Yes, he did. And he should suffer the consequences for that. This is no way to treat opposing counsel. Certainly, people say things. The judge will say that in a moment. People say things. This went way further than that.
I want to go over some of the claims that you have made. By the way, people out there, particularly the non-lawyers, you may want to leave.
So the judge apparently thinks non-lawyers are more squeamish than lawyers. Maybe the judge is aware of how dark the world becomes when you become a lawyer, because the world is super dark for lawyers. We see the worst of the worst. Very few lawyers only deal with good stuff, and we just see the darkest side of you. I'm sure we're not the only profession that sees the darkest side of humanity, but holy mackerel, we see the dark side of humanity.
There are things that I hope we don't get there, that might be discussed in here that are far from polite.
Fortunately, they don't actually get to discussing the individual curse words or anything like that. So I don't think I have to warn you to worry about it.
And if you're easily offended, this is not the place to be.
I might not want to be in the room when Judge Wright is yelling at him.
Okay, fair warning.
Fair warning.
Somewhere in your papers, you indicated that these are confidential, as part of a confidential negotiating strategy.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then later on, this is all motivated out of frustration and anger. Now, which is it? Is it a calculated negotiating strategy, or did you just give in to anger and frustration?
It was both, Your Honor.
Oh, it was both.
Yes, it was initially a strategy, and I lost control of my anger, and I obviously failed to conduct myself in a professional way, and I can't excuse it.
So the other thing is this. Thank you. So what we're doing now, we're going to walk back the claim that all of the emails, and I read all of them, that were attached to the ex parte application, that were insufficient evidence because they had not been authenticated.
See if you can tell what huge mistake Christopher Hook is making right now.
These emails, quote, allegedly from you, you've backed away from that now, right?
Your Honor, I'm going to submit on the papers. I'm not...
No. I'm asking, you know what? This is not the day to be cute.
So the judge is now pissed off that Christopher Hook is trying to say he's not going to testify against himself, which is fair. Christopher Hook should probably not be testifying against himself. But the judge does not have any time for that. What do you think Christopher Hook should be doing right now? He should be represented by an attorney. He should be represented by the best ethics attorney he can afford who will touch his case. Because his major mistake, besides making those statements and things in the first place, besides getting here, his next major mistake was showing up without representation. Because if he had showed up with representation, that representation would be doing what Leibowitz's attorneys did. Talking to the judge and saying, my client screwed the heck up. What can we do to fix it? We can't really explain it. We can't really excuse it. We understand he's going to have to pay for it, but he is sorry, etc. And it sounds a lot better when it is coming from your attorney than when it is coming from you who have already discredited yourself. In this case, have already discredited yourself before the entire nation and possibly the entire world.
Are you backing away from denying that you wrote those things?
I'm not going to be a witness against myself, Your Honor.
Okay, good. This is going to be good. You're going to enjoy how this comes out.
Your Honor, I'm not denying that I wrote those emails.
So there, the judge just trapped him. The judge knows what he's doing. The Judge Wright just trapped Christopher Hook because Christopher Hook did not have an attorney to stop it. Judge Wright knows that Christopher Hook does not have to testify against himself. It is a Fifth Amendment right. And this sanctions proceeding, although it is not a criminal matter, he still has that on the table. So he'll still have the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment. Now, does that mean his charges go away? No. It just means that he doesn't make it worse, like he's about to do.
I don't want to be a witness against myself.
Oh, you are.
Okay, well,
You are. You played into a rookie mistake. You put all this in writing?
it was a mistake, Your Honor. Bad mistake.
Press F for Christopher Hook.
Oof.
Puffery? I know what puffery is. We all know what puffery is. Should I read you some examples of puffery? Or what you call puffery?
I would
You threaten people.
Yeah, I don't think he actually reads them.
You did. You threatened people. You start using this kind of foul language against people, calling them every name under the sun, and telling them that you know where they live, and then you mention his wife's name. If that had happened to me, I'd come looking for you.
If that happened to me, I'd come looking for you. Or you might say it the way I say it. If that happened to me, you're not going to jail. I'm going to jail.
Understood, Your Honor.
This is why we had to knock off the depositions, because a whole lot of things would happen in that conference room, but none of it would have been a deposition. And this is their fault, right?
Yeah, now imagine going to the deposition where all state's attorneys and Linda Baker and I forget Oliver's name, I'm sorry, have to appear and all that, and everybody gets deposed. I mean, not everybody appears at the same thing, so the witnesses don't all appear. It's just the one witness, but all the attorneys appear. You can bet the all-state attorneys would not have been able, well, I mean, they may have been able to. Don't let me speak for them. But just speaking about human beings, I would not have been able to sit across the table from Christopher Hook and not bring up these threats and how inappropriate they were. And heaven forbid that he continued with them, I would have been across the table and, landing myself in jail.
They caused this. They brought this about by not answering your phone calls.
Not at all, Your Honor. This is my fault entirely.
Okay, so we're going to back away from that one.
So the judge is getting Christopher Hook to more or less admit the allegations against himself. This seals the coffin. This seals the case. This closes any question of whether, or closes any defense, basically. And so the judge can now confidently move forward with sanctions. If Christopher Hook's attorney was present instead, he would not be saying these things and not admitting to these things, and the judge would have a difficult time sealing it so quickly. It would be more of a finding the judge would have to reach, maybe holding either an investigation or something. This makes it way easier for the judge.
Litigation privilege, we're going to back away from that one. There are right to free speech under the First Amendment. We backing away from that one? I just want to know.
I believe those statements were privilege under the Evidence Code section and under litigation privilege. Yes, Your Honor.
Do you?
That's my belief, but it's not my decision now. It's the court's. So that's the position I took, and I submitted that to the court.
So he's holding fast to the litigation privilege and First Amendment claims or defenses. That would simply be that he has the right to say stuff, which, yes, he has the right to go say all those things, except the threats, to another person in public, whatever. Not another attorney in litigation. That that incurs duties under your professional responsibilities as well, which do have sections about respect and for the judge, respect for opposing counsel, not bringing disfavor upon the profession, in so many words. And he is doubling down on those defenses. The litigation privilege is that things said in litigation are for the litigation. And so, for example, defamation is harder to prove. If someone makes an allegation in litigation, that is not necessarily defamation. To say, well, I think this person, of course, when you're litigating, you don't say that. You say, this person did this thing to me. Well, that's not necessarily the basis for defamation. And there is something else to the litigation privilege that I forget. But that's what he's citing here, is that he's allowed to say these things. And that's, of course, not true.
And you honestly believe that? You honestly believe that the First Amendment extended to anything? Is that right?
That's not what I...
You did go to law school, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
You did go to law school, right? Wow.
You know what?
Big sigh from the judge.
God, this month I've sworn in 100 new lawyers. They were so happy and so proud to be lawyers.
As they should be. Aside from this, and heck, even because of this, it is an honorable profession. I do understand there are a lot of attorneys who bring some dishonor or even just the fact that people defend horrible people or that lawyers make sure that people who have committed atrocious crimes still have their rights observed. Because of that, it is an honorable profession. What we are doing is ensuring that everyone has the right to a fair trial, that everyone has their constitutional rights protected, that the police and investigating authorities do their jobs instead of just throwing people in jail. Because when you do that, when you don't observe people's rights, innocent people suffer too. In order to protect the innocent, we must uphold the law for everyone, not just those who we agree are innocent.
You just trashed their profession.
And he did. He, in his behavior, trashed the entire legal profession. And this is Judge Otis Wright's attempt to bring it back to visit the punishment or visit the sanctions upon Mr. Hook, to bring justice to the situation and hopefully show that this is still an honorable profession.
I apologize to them.
No, I don't want you to apologize to me. Okay.
Judge is
All
speechless.
right, you've taken care of the things that I needed taken care of. This is junk. You're going to pay for this.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're going to pay for this in a number of ways, but you're going to write a check. You are. You're going to write a check.
So we don't know how large of a check he's going to have to write, but the judge has the power to force him to pay for the consequences of his actions, which are all of these attorneys' hourly rates for having to be here. So assuming that Mr. Hook actually writes the check, all of these attorneys will get paid for all of this effort. It will probably be in the 5 digits in the attorney's fees alone. The judge then has the power to award like a multiplier or something. However, that multiplier is not the actual damage, so the judge may actually have to hold a further hearing or something to ensure that Christopher Hook's rights as a criminal, it's not a criminal thing, but we use the criminal standard for criminal sanctions like a punitive damages sanction or something else. Now, what the judge also has the power to do beyond money is refer him to various disciplinary committees. There will be one for the federal court as well as one for the state court. And you can bet everyone knows about this already, but the judge is also going to make a formal disciplinary complaint.
That's just the first thing. This is not going to be over. This is not going to be over. Every lawyer in this room can think back at how hard they had to work to complete law school, how much harder they had to work to get their license to practice. And the lawyers for the last few years,
And I'm grateful to this judge for having brought this kind of justice to this situation. He's absolutely right. Lawyers like me have worked tremendously hard, harder than I've worked at anything else in my entire life, at least before then. And in order to get my license, in order to finish law school and get my license, it was a huge struggle for me. I had lots of personal issues going on at the time with my family and things, and made it very, very difficult to finish. And it was a tremendous struggle and relief for me when I graduated and passed the bar. In fact, I didn't believe it at first because I really thought I had completely failed out of everything because I had no self-confidence or self-esteem by the time I was done with law school, which it didn't have anything to do with the law school itself. It had to do with what was going on in my personal life. So the judge is absolutely right. People have sacrificed tremendously to get to be lawyers.
And the lawyers for the last few years had to clear what appeared to be an insurmountable bar exam for the privilege of practicing law.
Remember, this is California, too, which has the lowest bar passage rate in the country. Something around 50%. I think it hit like 40% or something at one point. It's really low compared to other states. And we can talk about why later. It's not for this discussion.
And you act like a gangster. Tell you what, Slick, this profession does not need you. I'm going to do what I can to remove you from this profession. I have never seen anything like this in my life. And I'm not some snowflake. I spent a number of years in the Marine Corps and as a cop. I've seen this, I've said this, but I'm not stupid enough to put it in writing.
The judge admits that he himself has used strong language like this, and that other people probably have too, but none of them were stupid enough to put it in writing to opposing counsel in a court proceeding. By the way, a very good rule that Leonard French and many other lawyers live by is to only do things and only say things and only put things in writing that you could defend before a judge. So if I'm driving down the road and some idiot cuts me off in the car, I don't speed up and try to cut them off back. I instead think to myself, well, if that person causes an accident, I need to be able to testify before the judge that I didn't do anything to escalate it. Let alone that if you think it through, it's also a good moral position not to do things that hurt people. Christopher Hook.
Or to use it in a professional setting, for crying out loud. In negotiations?
Professional setting in negotiations.
Okay? This is not for you.
He means his profession. Lawyering is not for Christopher Hook, according to Judge Wright.
Why don't you just resign?
I will not do that, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll take care of it for you. Is there anything I need your
The judge is so pissed that he's fumbling a little bit here. He has said that he's going to do something to help make sure that Christopher Hook has to leave the profession of law. So I'm assuming that means he's going to do everything he can to ensure that a disciplinary proceeding ends in either the suspension or disbarment of Mr. Hook. I feel, well, we'll talk about it at the end, but I feel that this deserves at least a suspension and probably at least a 1-year suspension, and we'll talk about why. But, I mean, I'm not the disciplinary committee, and I haven't looked up disciplinary proceeding histories for this kind of thing, so I don't really know.
Your costs and fees.
What? Oh.
What?
Well, I was just going to... Your Honor, I've resigned from my role in this case. If Your Honor...
Oh, no. And you think that wipes the slate... Shut up. You think that wipes the slate clean for what you've done?
Not at all.
I'm going to go climb under my desk now.
Then what do you have to say? Come and tell me. Tell me why you aren't responsible for the costs and fees incurred in preparing the ex parte application and appearing here.
I'll pay them. I'll submit. I'll pay them.
What was it you were trying to say?
I thought that I thought there was some misunderstanding as to what I was being asked to resign from. I'm no longer representing the plaintiff.
Oh, I want you to resign from the profession, but...
He wants him to resign from the entire profession of practicing law.
I'm glad that you've resigned from this case.
I was terminated. I was terminated.
Because the case was going to be dismissed with prejudice. But your clients didn't know anything about this.
That's right.
And if the judge had dismissed the case with prejudice, Christopher Hook would be on the hook for his client's case. So whatever their damages were, they would still go through a trial, and the damages would instead be paid by Christopher Hook, at least in one scenario. There's a couple other scenarios. Maybe there's maybe Christopher Hook has an insurance policy that will somehow cover this. Maybe there's an appeal where he somehow doesn't have to pay for that because the case should have gone forward anyway. Forgetting all that, that's moot. That's not a problem anymore. In a hypothetical scenario, Christopher Hook would be the one paying for it.
You are a piece of work. Is there anything else we need to talk about? Mr. Scanlon, anybody?
Not in my view, Your Honor.
I need to take a shower. You?
You'd like us to submit something in writing?
Yes.
The judge is like, I need a moment.
He's through.
Yes. Is that it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Like, even the defense attorneys and plaintiff's attorneys who are now not involved with Mr. Hook anymore and are not in trouble, they're like, yeah, well, whatever you want, Judge, whatever you want. Just stop yelling at me.
We're out of here. Yeah, you leave first.
And then he makes Christopher Hook leave the courtroom first. Of course, remember, there's threats, and there's now a restraining order that's going to be drafted and filed, and the judge is going to sign it. So he's making Christopher Hook leave the courtroom first so that he doesn't have to leave the courtroom at the same time as the all-state attorneys that he threatened.
I apologize, Your Honor.
Yes, go. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
Court is adjourned.
The bailiff was like, I'm not messing up my job right now.
Now remember, this is the same Christopher Hook that actually went on Adam Carolla's Reasonable Doubt podcast and talked a whole talk about how this has actually gotten him clients because people liked that he spoke to the insurance company this way. Don't get me wrong, I think insurance companies can be really scummy. And sure, we've all felt, I've definitely felt ways about insurance companies when I've heard various things or when I've had to deal with them myself. Real quick, I don't like the insurance company that not totaled my car, but that said it was my fault when I opened my door in a protected parking spot with like white lines around it and everything, and somebody took off my door, which would sound like a really stupid thing to do, except it's a protected parking spot. It's like white lines around. Like I'm fully in the white lines. Like even with my door wide open, I'm all within this white box. But apparently it doesn't mean anything. Under Pennsylvania law, it doesn't actually mean anything. And the driver is allowed to use the full road or whatever. And because I opened my door and they took off, it was my fault. I don't know how. And my insurance company would not defend me. And when I said, there's a white box, and I'm in the white box, they said, if you want to present that defense, you have to fire us and you'll be responsible for the cost of everything. What about me paying my insurance company to defend me? Nope. Apparently, they just throw you under the bus. So yeah, we've all had feelings about insurance companies, and I don't doubt that these feelings were in some way valid when Christopher Hook was representing these people and the Allstate Insurance Company was not responding to him. I could certainly see how that would get him upset. No one is sanctioning Mr. Hook just because he got upset and said a few angry words. It was the choice of his expression of his anger. Whether or not he was completely out of control or not did not seem to be a defense of his. So we're going to assume he was in control of his faculties when he sent threats and extremely, I don't mean, let me just use the word extreme or inappropriate. I mean, this was the textbook definition of extreme and inappropriate language, of course, and then threats, because he was frustrated that he wasn't getting his way in negotiations. Certainly, that's frustrating. I have all the sympathies for people who are frustrated dealing with their insurance company and the attorneys who, further those frustrations. It is totally inappropriate to take that to this level. So I'm glad to see some justice. We will follow up when the sanctions are determined, and we will follow up with wherever this takes Mr. Hook. We're going to follow that. We're going to put a Google alert out on his name, and whenever he pops up someplace, we'll find out about it. We'll report to you when we have more. What do you guys think? Do I have my staff here at all? What do you think about that whole thing?
I mean, just the whole interaction between Hook and the judge is something out of a horror movie.
Right?
I mean, it's just listening to it. I was listening to it last night thinking, oh my God, I want to have nightmares tonight. Like this is the worst possible thing you could have a judge telling you. But then you look at the circumstances of how it got there.
Yeah.
And you're like, how could anyone get to this point?
Yeah, it's not easy to get there. I mean, it's easy to say the words and like overreact and stuff for some people, but I mean, it's not like you, Joe, are going to become a lawyer and immediately get disbarred because you did all this. Like, you'd have to really go off the rails like Christopher Hook did.
And then continue on and then show up in the court, hide in the back, and then a few minutes in say, oh, I'm actually here, just waiting for you to cool down, bro. What?
Yeah. Is that what he was doing? Do you think he was hoping the judge would like get it out first and then he'd calm down and Christopher Hook would be like, yeah, Your Honor, I'm ready to talk about it now? Or do you think Christopher Hook was just like really scared?
I don't know.
I would be scared. I
was scared, and I'm not even involved in the thing.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
I'm serious. When I'm saying I'm crawling under my desk, I'm obviously not crawling under my desk, but I'm really feeling it. Like I'm really feeling like just let me just like slink down here. I'm not here, Your Honor. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I would be terrified. I would be in the bathroom like hiding, probably, like
those the Allstate attorneys and the new plaintiffs' attorneys, they sounded like they were scared.
Yes.
Oh, what was the one attorney, the new attorney for the plaintiff, Matthew O'Hanlon or whatever?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, expert. I mean, he sounded super professional, but he sounded squeamishly scared a little bit. And just like,
yes.
Yeah, yes. And then he said at the beginning something like, it's a terrible situation or a troubling situation. And then the judge says, oh, I'm not troubled at all.
Yeah. Barnes and Thornburg, I've heard through the grapevine that they're very good attorneys, and we're the correct people to seek out in this situation.
What do clients do in these situations where this is happening? I mean, that has to be so. That's the thing with all this lawyer misconduct is, you hire these professionals. It's a little bit of a scary process hiring a lawyer, I imagine. And, now you've hired like the wrong one, and, you have to just be wondering like, what's happening? Is my case doomed now because I hired a bad lawyer? I mean, it has to be really a crappy situation to be in that place.
Yeah. So I'm glad that those plaintiffs figured it out. That the plaintiffs were able to hire new attorneys and get through it. So thank you for joining me. That's our show. I hope you enjoyed. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. This is Lawful Masses, your favorite legal news and education and story channel. We are always trying to find you stories to tell you about the law and help you learn something along the way. We are supported financially by patreon.com/LJFrench supporters and sponsors.com/law supporters. At the $50 level in the month of December, we are very thankful to have the following supporters helping out our channel: Aspernari, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Michael Pearce, Spirit Bear, Jan Negrey, Daniel Perez, Snorre Wisotzky, Blackleaf, Joe Tyson, Benjamin Hitov, Steven, Rumble in the Bunghole, and Cute Grills in your area. And thank you to the rest of our $5 plus supporters. You'll be scrolling in front of me when we release these as videos on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I hope you have a wonderful Yule celebration, solstice celebration, Festivus, and of course, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and holidays. I love you all. I will see you in the videos that drop. Bye. Oh, beautiful. I'm coming. I'm coming. I won't leave you. Oh, it looks very nice.